Good afternoon, everybody. Let's start today's session. Today we'll go through CCNA Module 10, Basic Router Configuration. We're going to introduce ourselves to a new internet working device, which is a router, okay? So we'll be looking at some router settings and configurations. What are the interfaces? And we'll configure a default gateway for our router. Okay. You already know that router is a device that connects two different kinds of networks, as opposed to a switch, which is used to connect devices within the same network. In other words, it connects devices having the same IP address, whereas a router is used to connect devices with different IP addresses. Okay. When I say different IP addresses, I mean the network portion of the address is different. Okay. So when you go outside your Ethernet or outside your local area network, you have to go through a router. And that port through which you go out is known as your default gateway. Okay. That's the gateway that gives you entry outside, or also allows packets inside the network. So let's have a look. Have a look more inside the concept of router. So configuring the initial router settings. Now, when you switch on your router, your iOS command is very much similar like a switch. Okay. Once you are inside, you will get a prompt, and then you type enable. You go inside your privilege exec mode, and then you can configure the device name by giving the command host name. You can give a privilege exec mode password by saying enable secret password, very much like a switch. Okay. You can give a user exec mode. That means when your when your router is switched on, you can give a password for that as well. Line console 0, password, and login. Now, when you do the labs, when it comes to password, don't give any password, my dear students. Don't waste your time with that. Okay. You can practice it by using packet tracer in your own time. But when you're doing a lab, especially the lab we are going to do today, please do not give a password. Okay. Next, you can also give a telnet or secure sockets edge password. What you can do, you can say that line VT04 and then give a password. The issue with telnet and SSH is that first of all, telnet and SSH is used to access your router from a network. But the issue with this is it is not encrypted. If you want to encrypt it, then you give the service password encryption command. Okay. When you switch on your router, if you want a banner to be shown, then you can type banner, message of the day, MOTD. Message is usually, if you are not allowed to use the router, please go away, or unauthorized use is prohibited, something like that. Because routers in a company, in an enterprise, nobody should touch it. Nobody should touch it except the network engineer, okay? Except a person like you. And whatever commands you have given for your router, the problem is when you restart your router, all that will be flushed out. So in order to save, what you have to do is type copy running configuration to startup configuration. Okay, very much like your switch so far. Okay. All the commands that you give to your router is saved in your router's NVRAM. Okay. Now let's go and see how do we configure interfaces in a router. Now, usually when you want to configure an interface, you type the name of the interface, and then you can also describe the interface. And then if you want to give an IP version 4 address, you give an IP version 4 address. If you want to give an IP version 6 address, you give an IP version 6 address. And then type no shut so that your interface will be activated. Okay. Just like, again, this is very much similar to your switch. Now, if you observe, I have got two routers over here. This router is connecting this network. What is this network? This network is 192.168.10.0. This is the network address. And this network is 10.1.1.0. And this is another network where you're connecting two computers together. Okay. Now look, this is /30. That means network portion is 30 bits and host portion is only 2 bits. 2 to the power of 2 minus 2, that means only 2 devices can be connected. And those 2 devices are your router 1, gigabit 01 port to router 2, gigabit 00 port or 1. We don't know, they haven't shown. Okay. And the same goes for your IP version 6. Okay. So 2001 colon DB8 colon ACAD colon 10 colon /64. So the moment you see 64, that means 64 bits is network address and 64 bit is host address. Same goes for this, same goes for this. Okay. Now, what you can do is you can set your IP address for each of these ports. For example, here we are saying interface gigabit Ethernet router 1. We're talking about this router. Interface gigabit Ethernet 000. So we are talking about this interface. And then we say description is linked to local area network. And then I give an IP address. Now the IP address you give over here should match the network of 192.168.10.0. That means if this PC is 10, this one perhaps should be something within this network address. So this one is 192.168.10.10. This one should be 192.168.10.1. Usually, the first IP address we reserve for the router. Usually, you may not do that. Okay, it's more of a should than a must. Because if you do that, you remember that, hey, because this is also the gateway through which this network, 192.168.10.0 network, will go out. Okay? So you have to make sure that you give a IP address which matches this network. Okay? So IP address 192.168.10.1, then subnet mask. And then IP version 6 address. Okay? You don't need to write any separate subnet mask, just /64. That means in this address, the network portion is 64 bits and the host portion is 64 bits. And then no shut, exit. Done. Okay. Now, in this port, the IP address of this port and the IP address of this port should be the same. That means same network address. You see? Same network address. This is the network address 224. So this one is 225. This one is 226. Okay. Question: what is the broadcast address? Anyone? If this one for this network,
228.
22?
Sorry, 7.
Yes, very good. The last address is 227. Very good. So this is the network address 224. The first IP address is 225. The second IP address is 226. What is the third IP address? Anyone? What is the third IP address? Anyone?
For host portion,
For this one, yes.
there is no third address for host portion because
Yes, very good. These are the questions I'm going to ask you in your skill-based, my dear students. See what Tanvir answered? He said there is no third address because host portion is 2 bits, 2 to the power of 2 minus 2 is equal to only 2 hosts. What do you mean third? There is no third. So the network is 224. The first IP address is 225. The second IP address is 226. And the next after the last IP address will be the broadcast address, which is 227. Okay, very good. Very good. Okay. So now we can give the same IP address for this network as well. Okay. This one is 10.1.1.0. So this PC will have IP address 10.1.1.1.10. So here we can give perhaps the IP address should be belonging to the same network. So 10.1.1.1. Okay. So follow this convention of giving the first address to a router port. If this network wants to get out of this LAN, it has to go through .1 gateway. If this network wants to get out of this network, it has to go through this gateway. What is the address of this gateway, this connection? 10.1.1.1. Okay, so this is some simple concepts that you have to understand. Okay, and you're going to implement it today in your lab session, lab number 10. Okay, so now after doing this, now we are giving the IP address for gigabit 01. Okay, there, gigabit Ethernet 01, a new IP address. Okay, because it belongs to this network, and also IP version 6, and then no shut exit. So to verify interface configuration, we can use the show IP interface brief. Okay, show IP interface brief. It will tell you what are your interfaces, gigabit Ethernet 0 and gigabit Ethernet 1. It will show you the IP addresses assigned to each of these interfaces. If you want to see the IP version 6 interface, type show IP version 6 interface brief. Okay. Remember, for your skill-based exam, since it's going to be, we are not going to see each other face to face, I'm going to ask you a few questions and you should be able to answer me. So when I say I want to see your IP version 6 interface, you should know that you have to type show IP version 6 interface brief command. Okay. So this table shows you some of the commands used to verify interface configurations. Okay. Show IP interface brief, show IP version 6 interface brief. This is for IP version 4. Show IP root. It shows you the routing table stored in the RAM of the router. Show IP version 6 root. Show interfaces. It shows you the statistics for all the interfaces on the device. Okay. Show IP interfaces. It shows you only IP version 4 statistics, and show IP version 6 interfaces. It shows you the IP version 6 statistics. If you want to view the status of all interfaces with the show IP interface brief and show IP version 6 interface brief, it will look something like this. Show IP interface brief. It will show you all the IP version 4 interfaces. Or show IP 6 interface brief. Can I give an interface both IP version 4 and IP version 6 address? Yes, you can. Okay. If you want to see the contents of the IP routing tables, you type show IP root. For version 6, show IP version 6 root. Okay. And it tells you what is the root. Okay. That the routing table that is stored inside the router will be shown to you. Statistics for all interfaces, just type show interface gigabit 00 or gigabit 01, and it shows you the statistics related to your interfaces. Some of the commands that you have to remember is IP4 interface, show IP interface. Mention the interface, and it tells you what is the state, what is the IP address, what is the subnet mask, is it up or down, okay? Whether ARP is enabled, okay? So it will give you details about it. These commands are some of the basic things which you're going to use all the way until CCNA-3. Remember, your CCNA consists of 3 branches. Right now we are doing CCNA-1, then we have got CCNA-2 and CCNA-3. So if you want to show the IP version 6 statistics, then you type show IP version 6 interface. Mention the interface and it will show you the statistics related to IP version 6 interface. Here I'm just trying to see the IP version 6 interface related to Gigabit Ethernet 00. Now, what is gateway? Like I said, gateway is the device which is your router, which is the port that allows you to exit or enter the network. Okay, so the default gateway in this network, you see I've got a network here, 192.168.10.0. So the gateway will be here. I've got another network, 192.168.11.0. The gateway over here is G001. So when you have a gateway, my dear students, okay, you have to give that gateway address on your device. Otherwise, you won't be able to exit. Okay. Now let's open Packet Tracer and quickly do this. Let me do a mental map of it. Okay. So what I do is I have a router. Here's my router. And what I have next is switch. This is my switch. Switch. Okay. And I've got 2 PCs, correct? Just take 2 generic PCs. There we go. 2 PCs here. And 2 PCs here. Okay. So let's say this is PC1. Okay. So this network, what I do is I give it an IP address 192.168.10.10. That's my subnet mask. Let's just copy and paste. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste this address right at the label, at the name, so that I can remember it. So follow this convention, you as well. Okay, so it makes things easier. So let's do the same thing now here for PC. Let's call it PC2. Okay. So give an IP address of 192.168.10.11. Okay. So again, I copy and paste this address and put it right over here. Okay, put things in perspective. Okay, when you have address like this, makes things easier. Now, I do the same thing for these two PCs. Perhaps we should do the wiring first. Okay, so connect PC1, pass Ethernet to perhaps pass Ethernet 1. Then here, pass Ethernet to fast Ethernet 2. Okay, you see, I'm keep on using straight through. Okay, here I connect gigabit Ethernet 1 to gigabit Ethernet 0, 0. Okay, here I connect gigabit Ethernet 1 to gigabit Ethernet 1. And again, I connect fast Ethernet to 1. So this is my one network. This is my another network. Network 1, network 2.
So just one question.
Yes?
Does it matter which version of the router we use?
Yes, because some routers have got features that other routers don't have.
All right.
But usually, I always take the first one. Okay?
The 4331, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter in CCNA-1 much. But when you do your CCNA-2 and 3, then you will understand perhaps there are certain subtleties in the routers. Okay?
So it's good practice to keep that in mind right now, yes?
Not really. It's just CCNA-1. Just take any router and start practicing. Okay?
All right. So in short, no, it doesn't really matter yet.
Yes. Not at CCNA-1 level.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Especially at this moment, because this is the first time that you're going to use a router, correct? So you have to know the basics. First, get your basics right. And then we can, experiment with perhaps other routers and even use a Wi-Fi router and so on. For now, let's have a look. Here, what I do is I call this perhaps PC A. Okay, this is my PC A, and this network is what I do is I give an IP address 192.168.11.10. Okay, again, what I do is I copy and paste the IP address right beside this, so later on I don't forget. Okay, so this one I call it PCB. Okay, and this one just like that, 192.168.11.11. Subnet mask comes in automatically. Just copy and paste. Okay, so yes, 10 and 11. Yes, very good. So as we can see, the network is built, but the moment you go to your router, the network doesn't work, correct? You see? There's no connection because we have not configured our router. So remember, your router consists of gigabit Ethernet 0 and gigabit Ethernet 1. This is 0, correct? Yeah. So your gigabit Ethernet 0 should belong to this network. So 10.10, 10.11. So I'll give here 10.1. Your gigabit Ethernet 1.1 should belong to this network. 11.10, 11.11. Here I'll say 11.1. Okay? Yes, gigabit Ethernet 1. And this one is gigabit Ethernet 0, 0. Just hover your mouse on top of it and it tells you which port it is. Okay? So let's go and set this. Okay? This is my router. So enable and conf t. Okay? So I'm setting this interface first. Okay? So I type interface gigabit 0, 0. Okay? So there we go. IP address 192.168. Remember, this is my network. Okay. .10.1. Okay. Remember, usually the gateway address we start with 1. Usually, now I can give an address like this, 75. No worries. But it makes more sense to remember that my gateway address is 1. Okay. As a network engineer, this is the practice we do. Okay, there it is. So no shot. I'm not giving a IP version 6 address. I just want to make it work. I want to do this fast and make it work in IP version 4. Okay. Now, can you see? The moment I've given the address, the network is up. Can you see this, my dear students? You see? The network is up. Now, what I'm going to do is do the same thing, but now for this network. Okay. So what I do is so again, conf t interface gigabit 0/1. Then I go to interface gigabit 0/1. So IP address 192. I just can look at this and then, you know, it will be easier to remember. 192.168.11.1. Subnet mask 255.255.255.0. Done. Move shut. Exit. Exit. Now you see the state is up. Okay. What was that? Sam is here. Okay. Now what I do is, my dear students, I'm going to let's just close this. Let's ping. So let's start from here. 1111. Okay. Whose device is making noise? If possible, stop it. I mean, switch off your microphone. So what I do is, this is the PC that I've opened. 192.168.11.11. Let's just ping ourselves. Ping 192.168.11.11. There. Our TCP/IP is working fine. I can ping myself. Now I'm going to ping my brother on the other end, which is 10, and it works very fine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ping this router interface. Okay, I'm going to ping the gateway. So there I go, ping 192, which is 1, correct? And it works perfect. Now let's take it up a notch. I'm going to ping the other interface of the router. There we go, which is, remember this network, this one is 10. 10.1, okay? Will this work, my dear students, when I type ping 192.168.10.1? Anyone would like to say something? Will it work?
It's from PCB. Yes, it should, because it'll go through the router.
Okay, Hamza said it should. Anyone who says it won't work? Anyone? Hamza and everybody says it worked. Anyone who wants to have an opposing opinion?
I think it's not going to work.
Do you need to for switch virtual interface?
No, I didn't give an IP address to my switch.
So
I didn't give a VLAN IP address. You see, I didn't create a VLAN, and I didn't. There is a default VLAN, but I didn't give an IP address. The network is okay, right? Because you see, I managed to ping from here to here, correct? So it goes to the switch, no problem. I also managed to ping from here to here. So it goes through the switch, so no problem. Now, my question to you is, if I ping from here to here, will it work? Now, Hamza says, yes, it will.
Sir,
Yes.
do you know to introduce the hop, next hop? What is next hop or something like?
No need to do that. No need to give a hop. The hop command is that is something which we studied in the lecture, and that is automatic. It calculates by itself.
So it should work.
It should work. Okay, very good. So you also with Hamza. Anyone who says it won't work, anyone in this group who says it won't work?
If it doesn't work, I'm curious to see why not.
So you're trying it out?
I mean, everything looks green and it pinged before, so
Yes.
why wouldn't it?
So let's see. Oh, this guy is smart. He has tried it out. So let's see whether it works. There. It's pinging. Remember this end. Okay. I'm trying to ping from here to here. Request timed out. Request timed out. Remember 32 bits. One more. There. I could not ping. Why? Can anyone tell me why?
Sir, the last
Yes.
one, it was 10, not 11.
Pardon?
The last part, the IP address, the one configuring the switch, sorry, the router, it was 10, not 11.
Huh?
The IP address is in, I think it is not in the table or something like RP table, or I forgot the name. What's the table for ping something, for ping the other network address?
Okay, let's try. Okay. Here, let's
Yeah.
show IP interface brief. There. Gigabit Ethernet 00.192.1. This is the one I'm trying to ping, right? How
Yeah.
can you say it's not there? It's here.
From PC.
Okay. Here. See? There. There. This is the one, correct? Correct? Somebody's microphone is disturbing. So it doesn't work. Can anyone tell me why? The issue is I can ping within the network. I can also ping the port of the router interface 01 within the network. But the moment I'm going to the other network, I cannot do it. Can anyone tell me why?
Have not set the default gateway?
Yes, hallelujah. Yes, he's right. You have not set the default gateway. Okay? You have not set the default gateway on the PC. You have to tell that the PC, if you want to go out, the gateway is this port. Okay? Gigabit 01. You have to mention it by IP address. So how do you do that? Very simple. Okay? You go to your IP address. Default gateway is 192.
The router, yeah.
168 dot 11
.1?
yes 1. Okay.
Yep.
So
Okay.
you can set this. Once this is set, now let's try. Okay, so there you go. Can you see?
Yep.
Now you can ping not only to this, but you can also ping to the PC in the other network. So let's ping 1010. Okay. It's looking for it. So the first will be timed out requests, but the other three should be reply.
Sir, one question. I might be a bit late, but which lab is this? Because on Moodle I found 10.4.4.
Did I get this wrong? Yes, we have not set the other one as well. We have to set the other one. Okay, this is not a lab. This is
Oh, never mind. Yep, never mind.
this. I'm trying to just simulate this.
Yeah, I understand. It's just a demonstration, okay?
I'm not going to do the lab for you. I want you to do the lab yourself.
My bad, sorry. My bad.
Okay, so let's try again. 10.1, yes. Okay, what about 10.11? Also cannot reach.
Sir, you put the default gateway for the router through the config screen. How would you do it if we want to do it from the console? Like, do we just write, instead of IP address, do we just write default gateway?
No, you cannot do that. You have to actually go and give it, because in Windows and Linux, you have to actually go and give a TCP/IP address. In your TCP/IP address, you have to mention what is your default gateway. And what you do usually, in the industry, nobody gives individual IP addresses to the devices. We configure the router as a DHCP server. This is something you will learn in CCNA-2. You configure your router as your DHCP server, and that one automatically gives the IP address to the devices. And when it gives the IP address, automatically the PC will register this as the gateway. Get it?
Understood, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, let's first go and fix this. IP configuration, default gateway, done. This is my default gateway. So, sorry, desktop, ping 192.168.1, sorry, .10.1. Yes, I can go out, but I still cannot ping 10. Okay, because the gateway okay, yes. Now we are going to go to the other side and try the same thing. Okay, now let's open here 11. Okay, ping itself 192.168.10.11. Perfect. Now I'm going to ping the other PC on the network, which is 10. Perfect. Now I'm going to ping my router. Perfect. Now the problem is I cannot ping the other side of the router, which is 11.1, because I have not given a default gateway. So let's fix that. There we go. Okay, so since it doesn't work, we need to give a default gateway. So let's start with this. IP configuration. What was the default gateway? 192.168.10.1. Okay, just copy and paste this. Okay, again, desktop IP configuration. Copy and paste. Done. Okay, so let's try again. Okay, the other side, now I can connect. Okay, what about the PCs on the other side, which is 10? I can connect. What about 11? Remember, we couldn't connect. Now I can connect. Okay, so this is very important, my dear students. Whenever you are connecting through a router, two separate networks, the devices need to have the gateway, the outgoing IP address. Okay. Now, for CCNA1, remember, you have to statically give IP addresses. Okay. But when you do CCNA2, as I told Hamza, what you need to do is you just configure your router as a DHCP server. What does it do? No need to give IP address anymore. Okay. No need to give static IP address anymore. You just select DHCP and then it will give an IP address automatically. Okay. The same goes for IP version 6. You select DHCP and IP address will come automatically. Okay. Now let's go to the last slide. A switch must have a default gateway as well. Now, if you notice in my packet tracer, I did not give an address to my VLAN 1. Okay. If I had given a VLAN 1 address, in my switch also, I have to type IP default gateway 192, for example, here, I have to type IP default gateway 192.168.10.1. Okay. So this brings us to the end of today's session. This is a very simple concept of using the router, and by the end of this CCNA1, you should be really good at using the router. And today's lab, which is lab 10, is one of the most important labs you will do for this unit. Okay. Yes, no lab for tomorrow because tomorrow is a public holiday. That's why we are doing the lab today. Now, I'm going to stop the recording.